They're yours. Hit that one more time. I am the number one determinant of the success or failure. Here we go. Of my students. Hey, y'all, you have a strong summer. Kick some butt next year. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. That's the mindset. That's the attitude. Love you guys.
And we are live. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let's see what we got here. Who we got here? Ricardo Yanis is in the building. Vanessa Zeskin. Yolanda McKinney is in the building. Michael Benton. Hit that share button as you come in, folks. Let them know we're here, man. We're in week 107 of the virtual AP Leadership Academy. We got Jennifer Mortvit Mapes. We got Peter Finch in the building. Do know Superintendent Finch. I got you on my list of our future guests. I got that list is so long, but I got you on there. We got my wife, the Queen, Kimberly Broughton Kafele, is in the building. We got what we got is moving kind of quickly. We got Rashard Davis in the building, Golf RWT. The hero Ndaye is in the building out there in Houston. John Herrick's Principal Dot McKeeter Jeever. Man, I always mess that up. You know I messed it up, Doc. Dot McKeever Jeter is in the building, and y'all check her video out when she was on the platform, man. It continues to generate a lot of views. So make sure you go back. I don't know what week it is, but check out the interview with myself and Principal Jeter. We got Stephanie Gooden in the building, Kathy Dalamonte, Latrice Hines Rich, Tony McClenny, Cheryl Hood Francis. Where we at? Megan Wilkes, Michelle Mishover, Lewis Henderson, Rodney Richardson is in the building. My man Lou Saunders is in the building. Emily Barzak, Josh Tovar under MPA Jaguars is in the building. Jasmine Harris, Principal Stacy Mabry, she gonna be on here pretty soon. We got my man Gary Catano in the building. That's right. You said good morning, young man. I'm a young man, Gary. I'm 61, and you probably about my age, 60, 61. We both young men, right? Let's see where we at. Charlena Hottie's in the building. Danita Parker's in the building. Lily Lanier is in the building. Solomon Bazoye Jr. is in the building. Let me ask Yolanda McKinney, does that mean you're in Saudi Arabia or you responding to somebody else? Janine Bush, Deal, I think it is in the building. Lucia Jordat's in the building. Karima Anque is in the building. Hey, folks, hit that share button, hit that retweet button. We calling this leadership realities that may not come up in the grad school program. Man, we're going to talk about some things. You know, when I put this one together to get ahead of myself before I go back to these shout outs, I felt like, man, maybe I should switch topics because there's enough to talk about that's not in the grad school program to take me for the next 24 hours. And we don't have that kind of time. So, you know, but I kept it and I'll probably revisit this topic. Katrina Washington is in the building. Let's see where we at. Lucia Jordat might have said that one. Albert Buckles. Oh, I see. Oh man, I just lost it. Where we at? So Danita is in Saudi. All right, well, enjoy it out there. Enjoy yourself. Keisha Davis is in the building. Renee Graham, Tracy Stevenson. Where we at? Y'all, man, this thing is moving fast. Byrianne Collins is in the building. Principal Tammy Taylor is in the building. Janetta Saunders, Vaughn, LaQuinn Stewart, Kendall Leonard, Renee Torres. Hit that share button, hit that retweet button. Let them know Alicia Jeffers is in the building. I miss some of y'all because this thing is moving fast. See, for those of you that don't know this platform, this it's called StreamYard. I see all four platforms at once. I'm not just seeing one page, so it's moving kind of quick. I just saw a name that it popped up. I saw Jerry Craft is in the building, man. Hey, listen, y'all, I got to say this. If you don't know Jerry Craft, Google him, right? Jerry Craft, Google him. His books, his children's books are phenomenal. I won't even get into that other piece, Jerry. They can find that on Google, right? His children's books are phenomenal. Google him and then invite him to your school to come and talk to your students and your staff, right? Jerry Craft, he's on here. There he is, Jerry Craft. Kendall Leonard's in the building. I'm getting ready to get it rocking, y'all. Where we at? Jennifer Desmond is in the building. John Few, Letitia Henry, Ohio Girl Jones, my man, Principal Scott Savage. Matter of fact, I got to do him his due diligence. That is Dr. Scott Savage, right? He just got that doctorate, man. You can't, when someone gets their doctorate, you can't be like calling them Mr. no more, right? Or calling them Ms. or Mrs. Man. When they get that doctorate, you got to acknowledge that. You got to stand tall. You got to stand up and let them know, I see you. I see that work you put in. I see them years. I see that blood, sweat, and tears. That's Dr. Scott Savage. We got someone on here called Red Snapper, and they even got the fire. Wow. Hey, y'all, it's 11 o'clock. I got to go. In fact, somebody says past 11. I'm in the hotel room, man. I hope these neighbors are awake because, man, I got to release, right? So let me say to everybody formally, good morning. Greetings. Welcome to week 107 of the virtual AP Leadership Academy. And I don't know about you. You know I say that every week, man. I don't know about you, but I think I know. I was just talking to my man, our guest today, Principal Andre Benito Mountain. I was telling him, man, when folks come on here, they on here because they want to be on here. They're not here because of like the PD at the school and the principal says, you got to attend. Or y'all on here because you chose to be on here. Hey, to the neighbor over here and the neighbor over here, like, excuse me just for one hot second because I got to release, man. I'm on fire. Oh, man. I had to get that out, y'all. Oh, man. To my neighbors, y'all, forgive me, y'all. But last week I was in Lake Tahoe. And I couldn't release it like that, man, because it was a different vibe. I'm in Long Beach. It's different from Tahoe, right? So I gotta get that out of me, man. So like I say to y'all, I say it every week, right? Because your fire, that's like one of your greatest assets. Your fire. I'm talking about your energy. I'm talking about your enthusiasm. I'm talking about your excitement. I'm talking about your passion. That's one of your greatest assets to this work. So to my neighbors over here and my neighbors over here, let me just release this one more time. I'm on fire. Woo! I had to get that out of me, man. Woo! I don't know what it is, but I just got to release this to my neighbors. Don't call management downstairs. I'm going to bring it down now. I just had to get that out. Hey, y'all, listen. I got this quick message for you. I got this quick one. And like, this is like a go-to. Josh is on the screen, so let me clear my mirror off because he's going to say something if I don't, right? So let me go to the mirror real quick. My quick message, your mirror matters. Once again, your mirror matters. What am I saying? This, man, this thing is potent. But I know it's people that don't realize that, right? I know it is. That self-reflection, you got to go back into you. I got a 5-hour flight back to Jersey in a little while, right? So I'm writing this new book, right? I'm writing this new book for assistant principals. We ain't going to get into that right now, right? But so a portion of my time is going to be writing this book. Another portion is going to be reading a book. But another portion, I'm going to be here, y'all. I'm going to be here. I gotta reflect on my work. Why? Because I want to get better. I want to get better. I want to improve. I want to grow. And you remember my solo last week? And I told you every week for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be on that theme. I got to protect what I've accomplished. That's that word, y'all. I got to protect. That word is right in the title of that new book. I got to protect what I've accomplished. Because if I don't protect it, someone or something can take it from me. I ain't allowed nobody to take what I built. So your mirror matters. If you don't have one of these, get one and use it. It's I'm talking symbolic, but get it anyway. And engage in intense, intentional self-reflection, self-assessment, self-adjustment, self-improvement towards self-actualization. Enough said. Let me jump into some things real quick, because I got so many questions for my guests. Welcome to all the first timers, man. If you first time with us, welcome. If my screaming got a little to you, it's part of what I do, man. This is what I do on set. I got to get that out of me, man. Like that one I did today, that was really intense because that was 2 weeks worth, right? So, but I'm good now, man. I feel real good, right? But some of you might remember I said, I wrote on a Facebook post that sometimes you just got to go up on the roof of your school and let it out, man. I went on the roof of my school one year, and I was up on like a flat roof. I went up there, man, and I was like, ah! I just let it loose, man, and I felt relieved. Sometimes you just gotta release, man. It's like being in the church, man. Sometimes you gotta let you gotta let the Holy Ghost just take over, man. You don't care what people say, what people think. You just let God use you. Somebody ain't hear me, right? So welcome to the first timers. Congrats to everyone getting these new positions. I know a lot of you watched the video, thoughts to consider for the assistant principal job interview and thoughts to consider for the principal job interview. So if you have and it worked for you, congrats. But now you got to do the work. That's why this academy's here. That's why I've been doing this for 107 weeks, right? You got to do the work. Let's keep going. Also, to the people out there who haven't landed, keep on pushing. That means that job wasn't for you. Yours is coming. We got the Deaf Ed Conference, and I got the organizer on today. The Deaf Ed Conference, July 16 and 17 in Atlanta. I'll be there keynoting. My man, Dr. Anthony Muhammad, be there keynoting. My milking sister, Aaron Jones, will be there keynoting, and then so many other guests. We're going to be in Atlanta. Go to Google Deaf, D-E-F, Deaf Ed, E-D Conference. Register. Join us in Atlanta, July 16 and 17. Then July 12 and 13 going backwards. So same week, join me in Charlotte. We taking the virtual AP Leadership Academy on the road, man. I'm going to be in Charlotte. We're going to be at this hotel. I don't know which one it is. Just Google School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele. School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele. Google that. The fifth annual. Register and join me in Charlotte for 2 days, man. We're going to be down there, man. We, intimate setting, and we just going to be getting down, talking leadership. So that's July 12 and 13. Then you take 14 off, then fly to Atlanta on the 15th and join us down there at the Deaf Ed Conference. The organizers on here in the wings getting ready to come up here. My books, I didn't bring any, but the Equity and Social Justice Education 50, the Assistant Principal 50, the Aspiring Principal 50. Make sure you get your copy. I'm wearing the Memphis Red Sox. Somebody saw this, saw me wear this, and they thought it was down in the hotel lobby. They thought I was repping the Memphis Grizzlies basketball team. Are you kidding me? I mean, I like them and all, but man, this Negro Leagues, man. Memphis Red Sox, man. Memphis Red Sox. 1922 is when they originated. Right, I wear these with pride, man. I feel like Superman every time I put these jerseys on. I got like I was counting them the other day. I got like 55 of them, right? I ain't gonna tell you what they cost. So next, I think I'm there. For the newcomers, let me just say this real quick. There's an overarching question, a theme, if you will, to the academy. Does my assistant principalship benefit my school academically? That is why this exists. Does my assistant principalship benefit my school academically? This academy exists for that reason, for that question. With that being said, I'm done with the announcements. I'm ready to get to the substance. I got a guest here today, y'all. Man, he's doing big things down there in Atlanta. In fact, he's at the school right now. So let me bring him up. I got my man, my friend, Principal Andre Benito Mountain is in the building. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm on fire, man. I'm blazing. I'm blazing. I probably woke up everybody on this floor. Management gonna be ringing the bell soon, yo. But you got to calm it down. It's only 8 o'clock in the morning, right?
We need it.
We need it. We need it. Hey, Andre. You know, as I do with all the guests, before I even jump into your bio, I ask this question. I ask of everybody. I ask, over the past, when you think about your past 7 days, is there a win, W-I-N, is there a win that you can think of that you want to share with us that you had that might resonate with somebody out there that needs to hear about this win that you experienced over the past 7 days?
Man, I'll tell you, one of the wins is going on right now. We're having a community carnival here at the school, but seeing the partnership between the school and the parents to pull off these things that extend the work beyond just the school day and the instructional day, but being here on the campus and seeing hundreds of people out here helping out, you know, setting up games for the kids and experiences for the kids, the book fair. They're going to be coming in here to the media center a little later and engaging in the book fair. So those are the wins, because the school has to be more than just content. It's bigger than that. And so I love to see that happen, because teachers and principals can't do it alone.
I love it. So the win is happening in real time.
Yeah.
Saturday. Got folks out there. You know, I'm gonna read your bio so that the folks know who you are, but I'm gonna preface the bio. I'm just gonna put these on the screen right quick. This is one of the books that my guest, Principal Andre Benito Mountain, wrote. Principals don't walk on water, they walk through it. So this is one you can go to Amazon right now on your other device and get the book now, right? So this is one of them, and then the most recent is Virtually Lost, and you'll notice my name on there. I wrote the foreword to this book, right? So Virtually Lost. You want to get this one. This is essays on education in a global pandemic. So there's several writers for this one, but you can get them both on Amazon. So I just wanted to throw that out there right now, because I know people kind of come in and out of the broadcast. So these two, Amazon, and he's written two others, which I'm gonna tell you in a few minutes. And those are the books there. I'll show you again, or he may have some right with them. So let me read the bio. Andre Benito Mountain is an elementary principal in the metro Atlanta area and founder of DEF Education, that's DEF Education Consulting LLC. He is the author of Principals Don't Walk on Water, 2020, the Mountain, 2020, The Mountain Principles, 2018, and The Brilliance Beneath, 2016. His most recent book is Virtually Lost, which I just showed you, Essays on Education in a Global Pandemic, 2021. Andre is the host of the Deaf Education podcast on Spotify. He's also the publisher of Deaf Ed Magazine, so he's doing big things. A magazine that highlights the work of educators, artists, and activists in urban settings and their innovations to improve the schooling experiences of youth. Andre began his educational career as a classroom teacher in Macon, Georgia. He later served as K-12 curriculum coordinator in Augusta, Georgia, and assistant principal in Tacoma, Washington. Stacey Mabry said big things about you, by the way, the other day online. He has been featured on the cover of Teach magazine and Washington Principal magazine. He's the principal of Marbut Traditional Theme School, a public lottery-based school in Lithonia, Georgia, which has an emphasis on self-discipline, high academic expectations, project-based learning, and STEAM. He has worked to establish a community garden at his school to help students understand the science behind cultivating your own food in urban spaces. He is currently working to develop a hip-hop laboratory at his school to help students explore the history, literature, and social justice aspects of hip-hop culture and the mathematics associated with music production. Andre holds a bachelor's, Andre holds a bachelor's in history from Georgia Southern University, a master's in early childhood education from Wesleyan College, and an EDS from Augusta University, and is currently a doctoral student at Georgia Southern University. So we're talking about the soon-to-be Dr. Andre Benito Mountain. So, hey, that's a lot there. That's a lot there. Let's jump into it. Again, folks, the topic, leadership realities. It may not come up in the grad school program. Hit the share button, hit the retweet button. Let them know we're here. We're ready to get it rocking. So Andre, as an educator, and even if you want to go beyond, who is Andre Benito Mountain?
Well, Andre Benito Mountain is a son, a father, a husband, an educator, a historian, an artist, and an entrepreneur. And I want to make sure that our students and teachers all know that you don't have to put yourself in a box. You can do many different things because we're all been given so many different talents. So I'm all of those things wrapped up into one.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. What made you enter the field of education? Because we talked offline and you've done a lot of things even outside of education. What made you enter the field of education, and what continues to fuel your passion for this work?
Well, it's ironic that I'm sitting in a media center right now because one of my favorite memories from elementary school was going to the library. This is years before we had internet. And I always loved the smell of the library and the excitement of not knowing what you were going to pull off the shelf. And just that love for learning has always been with me. But both my parents were educators. So my father was an adult educator. He did 1 year as a high school teacher, and he transitioned to be an adult educator. And then my mother was an educator. So I ran as far as I could away from it and ended up in Jersey City after college working in finance. I said, no, I'll never be a teacher. I'm not doing that. And after 9/11, I decided that working in finance wasn't really what I was called to do. And I didn't know what it was at the time. So I resigned on September 28th, flew home, and ended up as a long-term substitute at elementary school in Sparta, Georgia. And I enjoyed that long-term sub position so much, just helping first grade students learn to read. I said, this is what I want to do. It may not be with this age group. A little older might be a better fit for me, but I want to be involved in helping kids develop that love for reading and information that I developed in elementary school.
Love it. That's strong stuff. I'm like you. My mother, who's on here right now, taught for over 30 years, inclusive of being a teacher of the year. And in fact, I told her I want to get her on here as one of my guests at some point. And my father taught for over 30 years. But as my mother will attest to, I told her that what she did was probably the most ridiculous thing that anybody could do. And that is to teach. And I told her that for years, throughout my high school years, what you do is ridiculous. And here I am, so it must have called me, because I certainly didn't call it. Right. So then you went on and became a principal. And as I say to my guests, these are 3 questions I literally ask everybody. I had specific reasons for becoming a principal. It wasn't just I wanted to lead a school. There was a lot of specificity there. So my question to you is, was there something specific, given all the reasons that you could become a principal, was there something specific that kind of superseded everything else and you said, but for this reason, I got to lead?
Well, I always wanted to create a space that would help kids just really love coming to school. There were great experiences that I look back on, and there were really some bad experiences that I wanted to make sure that other kids didn't have those experiences. So that made me want to be the person to help create that kind of culture and climate in a school, and make it more fun, make it challenging for kids who may not always get those challenges. And also, I'll tell you this, one of the greater joys of being a principal for me is helping those new to the profession and start off with the right trajectory.
Say that you got blotchy just on the last couple of seconds. Say that again.
One of the things that I really enjoy is helping new teachers enter the profession and start off on the right trajectory as they enter this field, because it's always changing. It's always something new to learn. So watching those young folks enter the profession and helping them make an impact with children and families is something I really love doing.
I love working with the new teachers too. It's interesting. There are times when my schedule is completely booked, but I may have built in some downtime just for me, and some me time to decompress and to rejuvenate. And then someone will call me and say, can you come and speak to brand new teachers? I'm like, yeah, let's do that, because that's just a group that I really want to talk to. You know, folks who are entering, they're green, they don't know what it's going to be. Those are folks I really enjoy talking to. You know, let's jump into some things. I'm going to ask you a question. I don't have to tell you this, but I'm just going to say it. This is not in my notes, because I didn't think about it until I was literally reading your bio. I've read it before, but in reading it in real time, a thought jumped at me. Last week, I don't remember what day, maybe Thursday, maybe Wednesday, whatever day it was, my son sent me this link, and it was to Kendrick Lamar's new song that he had dropped that night, The Heart Part 5, right? And I was watching basketball that night, and the video blew me away. I could not watch the game anymore. My wife is on the call. I just watched it over and over. I didn't even put the speakers on, so I didn't bother everybody else in the room. I just had it blasting, and over and over and over. I could not walk away from this video. Then the next morning, you know, I didn't have to travel. First thing I do is go right to the video, and I'm watching. So I know, you know, I keep up with a lot of hip hop heads in education. So hip hop education. I keep up with a lot of those cats out there who are talking, and women who are talking hip hop education. And I want to ask you this question, because I know I'm familiar with your love of hip hop culture, etc. My question, and I didn't plan this out, so let me make sure this comes out right, because this is off the top of my head. I don't have this in my notes. Did you see the song, the video?
I saw the video once. Yeah, I saw the transition. Someone sent it to me. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah. So I won't go into the video, but how do we make, and we don't have to turn this into an hour session in terms of the question, but how do we take hip hop and make it relevant in a classroom? Given your passion for hip hop culture.
Well, what we have to do first is really have a tough conversation with our educators and those in leadership, so that the value of hip hop can be extracted. Because hip hop can be purposeful, and it can teach history. And there's also a genre of hip hop that is just about having fun. And then there's another genre that really deals with capturing what's going on in our communities. You know, what are the realities that are going on in urban spaces in terms of crime and drug abuse and gang affiliations and all of those things. We have to unpack that, because that's what's missing from the curriculum. That's why kids become disengaged, because what we're teaching them doesn't connect to the realities that they see every day. And that's why they're so drawn to hip hop culture, because of the authenticity of it. And so we have to confront that, but it can't happen just at the teacher level if there's not support from the district and support from school leaders. And so you're having a generation of leaders coming in place who grew up in hip hop, like me, born in '75. And so now is the time to really look at what's happening at higher ed in terms of hip hop pedagogy, you know, and then use that and extract that. That's why we're creating the hip hop laboratory here, to really delve into that. That's the starting point.
Yeah. Cause see, when I was watching the video and listening to the lyrics, I'm an educator. So my mind is saying, man, there's so much content in this song, you know. So it's like you could develop literally a whole curriculum just on one video.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and the key word is what you said, and what Cheryl Hood Francis just wrote: relevance. Right. That's just absolutely key. So we're gonna bring you back for another time, and we could unpack all of that. Let's jump into it. You know, we're Andre, we're still in interview season for next year, and there's a whole lot of folks out there, aspiring administrators, that want to do what you do. They want to be assistant principals first. Get them just one nugget that maybe they're not even thinking about in terms of when they go to that interview, that may help them to be able to land that job. What's that one nugget that if you were interviewing them, you'd be looking for?
You know, I always want to know, what do you do beyond the school day? You know, I need someone who's going to step in as an AP and lead a book study with some kids, or jump into a classroom and ask a teacher, hey, can I teach this lesson? I need that level of initiative, and knowing that sometimes the impact that is after dismissal, how are you working to mentor youth? What clubs are you sponsoring? How are you engaging with these families when we have events on the weekends? Because, it's not a 9 to 5 or 7 to 3 and you head to the car, but there's some work to be done after the school day ends. And so always want to hear, of course, what you can manage during the day and how you dug into data and all of those things in the instructional piece, but also what are you going to do to help our kids be whole people and well-rounded?
Whole people and well-read. Put yourself in that superintendent's chair for a second, and that principal that you may be interviewing, right? That assistant principal that wants to become principal, I should say. Or you could be in the principal's chair, because that you do the same thing in that capacity. What's that one nugget you might give somebody that's interviewing to become a principal? They're frustrated. I can't seem to get a job. I'm doing all the right things. I'm watching the videos. I'm reading the books. I'm doing this and doing that. I'm on the virtual AP Leadership Academy. What's that thing that's missing that you could give them that they may try at the next interview?
I would say being able to get beyond jargon. I hate to interview someone and they're just dropping a bunch of jargon that's not connected to things that they've done. You got to communicate in an authentic way about what you've done and what you aspire to do, what you're proud of, what challenges you face and how you overcame them. But, our culture and climate in terms of the world of education, this profession is so grounded in jargon, the hot terms of the moment. But you got to really speak to what gifts you bring to the table that's different from what anyone else could speak to or do. And I'll tell you, that was the turning point for me as an assistant principal, as a curriculum coordinator, and even now as a principal. I just had to get to the point where I was comfortable with being me in that role. And people would just have to accept that. The things that I love and I'm passionate about, I bring them with me. I don't leave them in the car. I don't leave them at the house. Just like you bring your jerseys and you talk about the connection and the history behind that. You got to be able to bring yourself and not be a cookie cutter version of what people expect you to be.
I love that, man. You're gonna make me deviate from the notes, man. I spoke to this group called Bond Academy. This is an organization that's all about recruiting Black and brown men into classrooms. So they have this conference, and I keynoted it this morning, 6 o'clock Pacific time, right? And a lot of my remarks were on authenticity. And my personal refusal to walk into that classroom and checking portions of myself at the door. And then as a principal, my refusal to check portions of myself at the door. And then I'm only bringing a segment of me into the classroom or a segment of me into the school. If I'm going to be my best self, I got to bring all of me. That's that authenticity that you're talking about. That it matters, right? So with that, you are the proud principal of Margate Traditional Theme School. And there's a question that I encourage principals to ask themselves literally every time I got principals in an audience, which is the title of a book I wrote, is my school a better school because I lead it? And I always say, if I could come up with a question that was equally as potent, if not more so, for a principal to ask of oneself, I'd start writing the book as soon as I stop this video, right? I can't come up with a question. I've been trying for the past, 4 years now since I wrote it. What is a question that is more penetrating than, is my school a better school because I lead it? So I'm throwing that question at you, and I'm probably putting you on the spot with it, but I'm gonna throw it at you. Principal Mountain, is Margate Traditional Theme School a better school because you're in that principal seat?
I would say yes. I would say yes to that because of the challenges that we've overcome, the transitions we made in terms of technology during the pandemic, after the pandemic, and the people that I've been able to bring on board. The success of our school really speaks to the teachers and what they bring to the table. And so being able to select some really skilled candidates in Metro Atlanta, because it's very competitive. There's so many schools and school districts in this area. So I would say our school is better because I've had the privilege of leading it in this time, and because of the people that have been able to come and help us do this work, and the parents, just making sure that we broaden their opportunity to contribute to what we do, because you'd be amazed the amount of talents that parents have to offer the school. We just have to give them those opportunities. So we've tried to make this a more democratic situation where everybody can have a voice and seat at the table, because schools can't just be run by one person. The reality is the school is run by a group, a village. It takes a village.
Yeah, it takes a village, but it takes that strong leader to
That's
make
right.
that village function. Yeah. And for someone on the call that may be new to the broadcast, and you say, but isn't that like egotistical and cocky to say? Nah, that's confidence, right? That how you gonna win at anything in life and you don't bring the confidence to win. I'm watching basketball last night, man. Boston was supposed to be done, right? Games in Milwaukee, right? Boston's supposed to be done, but they brought a confidence. The skill is the skill, but the confidence that now we're gonna win game 6 so we could take game 7 back to Boston, right? So I'm saying here as a leader, that confidence has got to be evident in the leadership. So with that said, one of your 4 books, which I'm gonna put it on the screen again, Principles Don't Walk on Water. They walk through it. My question to you is, because as I read it, as I read the title, I said, wonder what he's saying. Right. So I said, well, I'm gonna ask him on Saturday. What message are you conveying with that title that they walk through the water?
Well, the principal has to get out there and go through the toughest situations, the toughest scenarios. That title came from an experience we had right here in this building, where there was a torrential downpour, and we come in the building and there's water everywhere, it's flood, and we kept all the students in the front of the building. But someone had to walk through that water to go and check and see whether the flood had gotten to all of the classrooms or there were certain areas that were dry. And I was the one who had to walk through that water, and you got to think there are outlets and computers and everything. The cords are sitting in that water, but you got to take the chance and walk through that and put yourself at danger before you put your people that you're defending and protecting in danger. And I think that was so typical of what being a principal every day is like. You have to put yourself in the toughest positions, have those tough conversations so that the folks that you support can do their job. And so that's where I found myself now as a principal, but that's where that title came from.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes so I'm seeing the analogy there, and you got to be willing to walk through that water. Yeah. And that's what the leader does, right? That's what the leaders do. And so as I went through the book, I put a lot of effort into just preparing every week. And I'm going through the book, and there's this chapter number 19. It was comprised of 19 chapters, I should say. But this chapter number 6 is the one that really jumped out at me in terms of the title, called Nurture Student Activism, right? So just thinking about, my role as a social justice educator, thinking about my role in terms of equity, in terms of how I define equity. So I see this nurture. And it's the 3 words: nurture, and then student, and then activism. And I said, so that was actually the first chapter that I really went hard on in terms of my reading. So in the chapter, you talk about these 2 4th graders who were persistent in advocating for a student dress day, right? A free dress day. They wanted to get out of the uniform, and they wanted to be free that day. And when I read it, I said, I went through the same thing, right? And I had activists, I had advocates who stood up on behalf of an entire school. Mine was more so the jeans with the holes in them, right? And I just wasn't with it. But then as they explained it to me, Principal Kafele, they don't sell anything else in the stores we shop, right? I don't mean big gaping holes. I mean them little, little small. I had to hear them, right? Yeah. So when I read that, I said, okay, yeah, there's a lot of overlap there. So here's what I want to focus on that word activism, and my question to you is why does nurturing student activism matter? And what might it look like beyond your situation? What might student activism look like at an elementary school and at a high school?
Well, student activism gets students out there talking about their position on issues that affect all of us. And I feel like if we don't get students doing that early on, it'll be very unlikely that they'll be active in their communities as adults. You know, we see a big push to disenfranchise many voters right now. You know, there's an active movement to keep your voice from being heard. And there's a reason, there's a method behind that madness. And I think if we invest in our young people and give them voice early on, they'll grow up into people who are going to go to the board meeting or explore folks and not just vote along party lines, but look at folks' positions and platforms, be critical thinkers, ask the right questions. I think that's one of the challenges in our community for us to get equity in school districts, making sure that people in the most underserved communities know how to advocate for themselves, and advocate to the right people. So that's why we're doing those things. And so at the elementary level, what does that look like? Well, having a group of young people who you get input on, how can we do this better? How can we do that better? Having those morning meetings in classrooms, that's part of our school-wide culture. And it's been a challenge because some folks want to come in and get right to content. But I always say you have to set the tone for your school day. You have to create that classroom community where you celebrate what went well yesterday. What are we going to work on today? Getting students to start speaking and not having the same folks speak every day. Tap in, have your equity sticks, call on different folks, because as young people get to understand and hear their own voice, that's going to empower them. Information is one thing, but you got to know how to communicate and share and advocate for your own interests. So, high school is going to be a step further, though. High school is more community service projects, having students work in a group and say, what's an issue facing our community? We recently had a group of students in our school district that produced a video that made its rounds nationally and has created a wave of discussion and actions about bringing about change, improving school facilities. Those are the types of things that we should see more of in terms of students speaking up about how can we improve our community? How can we improve our school? And being productive and purposeful in that process.
As I listen to you articulate that, the one word that kept resonating in my head, and you actually said the word, and I see A.D. Faison just wrote it, is the word voice, student voice, student agency. And here I hear you talking about giving young people an opportunity to be heard, right? An opportunity to not only use their voice, but to find their voice. And it's so critical. And I would harp on it because we know, you and I both, and folks on the call, that there are places out here, schools, that young people don't have a voice, or their voice is suppressed, or no one wants to hear what they've got to say. Student voice matters. So for me, when we talk about student activism, one of the terms that really just comes up in my mind is social justice education, right? And social justice education means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I went on and had the audacity to create my own definition of what it is, and I tend to do that with a lot of concepts. That's just, I guess, as I get older, I say, if I don't see what I'm looking for, I'll create it. So let me I want to read this real quick. I said social justice education is the ongoing student-centered exploration, examination, and assessment of the world upon which the students exist through their own lens. It's an interdisciplinary critical analysis of the world around them with respect to their relationship with it and how they fit in it via their own self-expression relative to issues of social justice, social injustice, and overall systemic, institutional, and individual racism, whether it be implicit or explicit. So that's the definition of social justice that I tend to use. I put it in my newest book, and that's what drives my work in terms of social justice education. So I want to go to you, and I want to ask you, because I'm not looking for you to be a mirror of me. When you hear social justice education under the umbrella of student activism, what does that mean to you in terms of your leadership?
To me, social justice education means, first of all, teachers understand that there's a need in this society to create more equity. Our students don't all have the same starting point. And so there's a sense of urgency. When you look at the number of African American males who are incarcerated in proportion to our population in this country, when you look at the percentage of African American males who are referred for special ed or suspended from school, that's a social justice issue. That's an issue in terms of civil rights. And we have to go into our work as educators with an understanding of those statistics and understand how my role as a principal or an assistant principal in terms of issuing consequences for students or creating structures that support young men, we have that opportunity. We have that opportunity to create change. And that's a social justice approach to leadership. And I think that's really the foundation for my dissertation work. It's on social justice and what that looks like in urban schools, because there has to be a blueprint for us. It's not just getting the certification and leading these schools, but also trying to instill that mindset into teachers in their everyday practice, right? So you can't have these schools where everybody's kicked out into the hallway, or everybody's sent to the office. You have to try to really reach how we operate on a micro level in the classroom. Those relationships are so important. And I will tell you, and this is not just at my school, but in our profession, some of our children feel like some educators aren't making the effort to connect with them as people for whatever reason. Maybe because of the way they speak or the way they look. And we have to make sure our children feel welcomed and loved. And that's a social justice piece too, because I can grow to hate school because of my relationship with this person I see every day. And so, it's so important that we look at ourselves. You talked about that mirror. We got to all have that little mirror and look at how we engage our young people. And I'll give you a perfect scenario. One of my parents reached out to me and she said, we were on ancestry.com and we found out that you are our second cousin. This is a student I would see every day. But now I look at that student differently because I just discovered this student is a relative of mine. What if we engage every single student as if they were a member of our family? What type of communities do we make in our classrooms, in our schools?
That's right. That's right. That's right. I'm trying to get that blur out of my camera. So given, as I looked at that particular chapter and thought about just went over everything that you wrote there, then there was another one that I kind of connected to it in my thinking, and you entitled it "My Heroes Wore Mask," right? My Heroes Wore Mask. And the motivation behind that title was Paul Laurence Dunbar.
Absolutely.
So my question to you is, what do you mean by my heroes wore masks? What does that mean? While I try to fix this lens here.
Well, when he wrote that poem, it was really about the way that African Americans had to move in society. We couldn't really speak to our pain. We couldn't really, advocate for our people openly because there would be such backlash. The structures, social structures in society were very much more repressive than they are now. And so my heroes wore masks speaks to that, but now being free of those masks and being able to advocate and call things as they are. But even in this moment, there's such a push against critical race theory and people actually talking about the realities of what we're up against.
And that, critical race theory, since you mentioned it, let's talk about it briefly. It's an interesting dynamic that we find ourselves in right now, because when I would go into schools, I never had to ask, is X, Y, and Z within bounds or out of bounds with a client. But now I'm finding in particularly meetings with clients before I get there to present, they may say to me, could you not say this and could you not say that? And it's all relative to critical race theory. And I'm saying, but these things that you're asking me not to say have nothing to do with critical race theory. This is not critical race theory if you have understanding of what that is. This is something very different. So, for example, if I'm in a school to talk about culturally relevant pedagogy, use that as an example, and I'm talking about the history of Africans in America, African Americans, anything that I say about the history of African Americans has nothing to do with critical race theory. I'm telling you the history of a people, and there's no theory about it. It's factual and hidden in plain sight in the nearest book or Google search, right? But because of the brainwashing of so many people, we think that the mention of Black people historically is somehow going to become an offensive conversation. You can't talk about Black people in America without talking about race and talking about white people. You just can't do it. Think about any era in American history, going back to 1619 to 2022. You can't talk about us without somehow having that race conversation, because our existence is so intertwined, right? In a very bad way. So if you're going to be truthful about the history, you got to tell the story. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think we've reached a phase in our profession where people want to be so politically correct that it almost puts a muzzle on truth sayers, and I don't think schools should exist to replicate the dysfunction that's always been there. I don't think that we should mince words. I think that people should say things as they are, and you shouldn't run from those tough conversations, because the only way to think about any relationship, a friendship, a relationship, a family, the only way to move forward is to have those tough conversations, air it out. And if you look at the textbooks that are used, the materials, the assessments that are given in many of our public schools, they're not culturally responsive. They don't reflect the populations that walk the halls of my school. And so part of my work as a leader has been to diversify the books that are on these shelves behind me, making sure that they reflect the children that are in these hallways and the things that they're interested in, and to weed out those things that are subtly repressive and racist or devoid of anything that's going to help grow them in this society.
I love it. I love it. Hey, somebody out there, hit that share button, hit that retweet, hit those Facebook groups out there. Let them know we're here. We're in week number 107 and we're going strong. Andre, there are terms out here such as culturally responsiveness or cultural relevance or cultural competence or equity or anti-racist. And we can go on and on in terms of those terms. And they've become commonplace. People use them kind of loosely and freely since the murder of George Floyd. So the usage of the terminology is commonplace, but what's not commonplace is the implementation, right? So we'll talk about it, but in terms of practice in a classroom, it's not always there the way that it needs to be. So the language of these terms, they mean one thing and implementation is another. I want to focus on one of them, and that is this is probably the one I talk about most, and that's culturally relevant pedagogy. And just to give you my spin on it real quick before I throw the question at you. When I talk about cultural relevant or culturally relevant pedagogy, I'm talking about young people seeing themselves on the pages, seeing themselves in the lesson, the feeling that I can relate to this, I can identify with this, I see me, I see its relevance, I see its relatability, and I feel that I can embrace this, claim it, and take it home with me. That, so when I think culturally relevant, that's kind of where my head is in that particular conversation. So my question to you, what does culturally relevant pedagogy mean to you? And have you found a way to make it a part of the pedagogy within your classrooms?
Culturally relevant pedagogy, it really means to me to take the time, and this is why planning is so important, take the time to make sure what you put in front of children connects with them. And make sure that when you present things, it aligns with their reality. There are times when I look at some of the test items that are presented to kids that are about a student taking a vacation, a family vacation, or earning an allowance and things like that. You have to also keep in mind, all of our students don't have the same experiences. So making sure that we're conscious of that, and we create opportunities where we can connect with them based on their experiences. What are the experiences you had? Getting to know your kids. That's why we talk about that morning meeting being so important. Getting to know, having lunch with your kids sometimes, because I can't provide culturally relevant pedagogy if I don't know the people who are in front of me. I don't know anything about them. The population of my school is changing. Over the last 5 years, we've had an influx of families from Africa and families who are Muslim. So there has to be some learning and a growth curve about us making some adjustments about the language, that's in signage, and about some of the celebrations that we highlight, where, we've always leaned towards Christmas and Easter, but then we rarely talk about Ramadan and Eid and all of those things. There's a level of professional education and learning. If I'm going to be culturally relevant, I have to grow. I have to get out of my comfort zone. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I did after I left Augusta, I went to Washington State, and I worked in one of the most diverse school districts in the nation, Tacoma, Washington. And I was able to learn a lot as an assistant principal in those 3 years by being in a setting that was very different from what I came up in. And so we have to put ourselves in spaces where we can learn and grow, because you can become stagnant in this profession. You can become very stagnant. It's like the medical profession. It's constantly changing. And so you cannot say, well, this is how we did things in 85. This is how we did things in 72. You have to be on the cutting edge, because otherwise you're going to do a disservice to the children you teach. So culturally responsive, culturally relevant pedagogy is so important, but it starts with you growing yourself.
That's right. I'm with you. I can't, someone put in the thread, I can't teach that which I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I can't teach children that I don't know. So there's so much, and that's why this is so critical. There's so much about us that has to develop if we're even in position to be that educator that young people need and require. In this case, in terms of being culturally relevant in that classroom. There's another chapter in there, the courage to fight. That was another one. The ones that were those titles that were personal to me, those are the ones I kind of highlighted. And I was one of them fighters. I was one of those folks that got into good trouble. I was one of them folks where the job is on the line, the career is on the line, the license to lead literally is on the line, right? Because of the courage to fight when I saw something that was unjust. So I want to read to the audience a statement that directly from your book. You said, at any given moment, the opposing parties could be publishers, vendors, politicians, parents, or media outlets. Regardless of the opponent, the fight ensues daily. So I read that and I said, just based on my personal experience, I said, I want to throw two more in there. I said, let me just take the liberty to throw in there community leaders and superiors. And here I want to ask you a two-part question on both. First, what might the courage to fight look like when there are community leaders out there or activists bringing undue attention to a low-performing school that is actually making significant progress, but the community is not aware? What would that courage to fight look like in that regard?
It would look like you shifting the narrative, making your voice heard, making the realities of the whole picture of what's going on, making it heard, whether that's in a town hall meeting or a post online about what's really going on, or sharing something at a board meeting. You got to make sure that people don't try to paint out. My first book, The Brilliance Beneath, was about how we try to take a broad brush and label schools. This is a bad school. This is a good school. And in every school that I've worked in, I've worked in about 4 different school districts. There's always been great things going on in all those schools. Some of them better than others, but I've never seen a school where nothing good was happening. And so I think the courage to fight means speaking up on behalf of teachers, defending teachers. I've always felt like teachers are not compensated enough because they're the people who educate everyone in our society. So we got to really look at teacher compensation beyond little supplements through the CARES Act and things like that. We have to make sure that the starting salary for a teacher is a livable wage. My first contract that I signed was $29,000 a year. So there was no way I could have supported a family on that type of wage. And so living in Metro Atlanta is very expensive. As many of our cities are becoming more and more expensive, teachers should be able to afford to teach, to live where they teach. So I think speaking to those things and not being afraid, like, oh, I'm going to lose my job if I speak out on the reality, that's what the courage to fight looks like and sounds like. And it doesn't always feel great. It makes people uncomfortable, but someone has to speak up, and we can't get in positions of power, assistant principal, principal, even at the district level, and then mute ourselves, at the expense of others.
Well, that last part you just said, getting to that level and then muting ourselves. Wow. Somebody may need to hear that. So staying on that same, the courage to fight, let me preface this first. I went to battle. Let's see. I went to battle with 2 superintendents in my lifetime, right? And my battle made the media. So we're talking print media, we're talking broadcast media, radio and television. I without getting into detail, I'm gonna put it in a book one day, but without getting into detail, I saw something I didn't like, and I needed to be the mouthpiece for an entire school and perhaps a district, right? So it almost cost me my livelihood. It almost cost me my principalship. It almost cost me my state issued license. And it certainly cost me my reputation because I was on television every day on the news. But 5 years later, Erin Jones is still on the program for the conference, right? 5
Absolutely.
years later, so she and I won that Milken Award. I won it 5 years after that fight. So I stood my ground, continued to be my authentic self, and 5 years later, I win the Milken Award, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which recognizes some of the top educators in the country. Had I muted, as you said, to use that word, I don't think I would have been recognized. I don't think I would have been seen, noticed, so, but because let me just be my authentic me. Yeah. And I was able to get through that storm, right? So I'm saying that to ask the question, what might that fight, that courage to fight look like when a superior, and I don't want to take you out of this, right? We're talking to an audience, but you want a job. So when a superior is imposing programs or policies that a principal just deems are detrimental to the progress of the school?
I think having that conversation, in the right setting, having that pulling them to the side and saying, this is how this is going to land. This is how it's going to impact the things that we're trying to do. I've had to have those conversations as an assistant principal, as a social studies curriculum coordinator. I've had to look at our social studies curriculum and make sure that we had some supplemental information, or go in and look at how we teach certain things, because you don't want to have young people thinking that my history starts with the transatlantic slave trade. When you have a school district that in that instance was about 74% African American, we have to really look at what we're teaching and make some changes. And sometimes turning a ship takes a long time. It's like turning a cruise ship. It's a process. It's a slow process, but it can be done. And so that's what it looks like, having those conversations, but also looking at how do we spend our money? Because if you follow the money, you can follow where the priorities are. And so we have to put more money into the arts, because many of our children are creative but never get opportunities to be creative in school. We have to not look at those things as just side activities, but they can be the centerpiece around which we put other content areas.
I left our mutual friend, Principal Chris Gaston, on the screen there. If you see that on the bottom there, he said, we can't mute ourselves. Great point. So he's reinforcing what you said from Lincoln High School in Jersey City. And he's been on the platform before, and Chris, he doesn't have a mute button, right?
No, I know.
I don't even know if he could spell mute, right? It's like if he sees the injustice, he's going to address it, right? That's just, and I'm not confining that to school. That's who he is in terms of his makeup, right? And that's a quality about him that I've admired for longer than he probably even knows, right? And so the point, I agree with him in terms of yourself. We can't mute ourselves, right?
Chris,
not we're gonna be happy. Go ahead.
Chris does some great work. I'm a fan of his work with the principals. They have this cipher that they do, and his work with the city council. He's always online, making sure that his community is good. He loves where he's from. He represents well, and he's a school principal doing great things. So Chris Gatson was a guest on my podcast, and just really inspired by his work and your work, along with that of Brother Anthony Muhammad, is like a lighthouse for leaders like me who are trying to do similar things.
I appreciate you. You know, in chapter 8, let's be frank, that's another one that resonated with me. So before I go to the question, there was a piece in here that I wanted to read aloud. So work with me, audience. Hit the share button, hit the retweet. Let me read this quickly. You said in Let's Be Frank, the millions of people who support public education in school cafeterias, school buses, and in custodial roles are an extension of work of classroom teachers and principals. They too embrace our kids and create spaces where they can be celebrated and nurtured. All too often, we overlook their contributions, but every once in a while, someone comes along and reminds us of the potential for creating magic beyond the classroom. Mr. Shepard guides us there. So you're talking about this gentleman by the name of Frank Shepard, the bus driver. Mm-hmm. So I wanted folks to hear that, and you know, the paragraph it really spoke to me because it made me think about, you know, how I empowered the nurse, the security, the secretary, the custodial staff, the paraprofessionals, the kitchen workers, the cafeteria workers, the bus drivers, that everybody has a role to play. You're not just what the job description says. As I told them all, you are educators, right? I don't care what your title is. You are educators, and I need you to act in that capacity as well. The cafeteria worker, when you hand them that tray, hand them a word along with it. You know, that was always my words to them. Hand them a word, not just a burger, right? Not just a tray, right? So with that said, speak to our viewers about, because we got a lot of assistant principals on here. We got a lot of aspiring folks on here, or who will see the video later on, who need this, because this is not grad school stuff. This is stuff you kind of pick up along the way, but there are many of us that don't pick it up. So speak to our viewers about how they might go about utilizing or empowering their non-certificated staff beyond their job descriptions.
Absolutely. When our kids come through the lunchroom in the mornings, many times that's the first staff member they encounter. And so that greeting is important, you know, having that interaction with them, with that cafeteria staff. And there are a few young people who, even though I see them taking their time, having their breakfast, I know why they're doing that, because they know as breakfast ends, those cafeteria workers are going to come out and have a conversation with. They look forward to those interactions. And one young lady that comes to mind, she's in pre-K. She didn't talk much. And as those cafeteria workers started having those morning conversations with her, she's talking more and more, and she's becoming more confident. And so that's what it's about. Because, you know, pre-K is really about a lot of socialization, getting used to interacting with others, building community. But that starts in that cafeteria, or it starts on that school bus. Those greetings, our bus drivers have so much personality. You know, they're very loving of our children and very animated. And so having that type of extension of your school is important. I very rarely have any kind of write-ups, because our bus drivers have built a community on the bus. You know, that's a little classroom on its way to your school. And my custodians, I just discovered one of my custodians in the front office helping a young man with his math. I took a photo of that and posted it in social media, because I wanted parents to see this is the level of commitment of the people that work with your children. This man is a custodian, but he's pausing in his workday to help this young man do this math problem with fractions. So, you know, everybody can add something.
I love it. And see, you called it the little classroom. I call it the mobile classroom. So we on the same plane here. I tell the bus driver, you know, you make life in the building so much easier when you recognize that this yellow vehicle called a school bus is a mobile classroom. Yep. Give them something in the morning. Teach them something in the morning, so that by the time they get to us, they're ready.
Yeah.
to disembark and go on into the classroom, and then we get down for the next 6 hours until the school day ends. So it's so important. So let's look at that assistant principal with that. How could an assistant principal empower someone who has a job description that says XYZ, but doesn't necessarily like the, let me be concrete, the custodian? How could that assistant principal empower that custodian to be more than just one who maintains a school in the context of being an educator?
How could the assistant principal empower the custodian to be more than just one that maintains the school?
Yeah.
Inviting them to have voice in other aspects of how the school is run. When we're about to have guests, part of that process is doing a walkthrough before, to make sure everything is in order. But having that leadership, giving the custodians the leadership on, hey, you're going to be an important part of how our school is reflected, but also encouraging them to build relationships with students, whether they're in the cafeteria, having conversations with the students. We can't relegate them to just cleaning when they're really part of that community. They're like an uncle or a big brother in many cases. And so just giving them that green light. So often when you talk to teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, nutrition workers, they feel like they have to just stay in their lane. And so I think assistant principals and principals have to tell folks, hey, it's okay to step outside of your comfort zone, step outside of your box. Everybody can help. Everybody can help. So if we have a mentoring group, that doesn't mean only teachers and paraprofessionals can help with the mentoring group. Or if we're going to have our counselors run a mentorship program where we've identified students who need mentors, but the mentors aren't just certified staff. It can be anyone. It can be anyone who can build a relationship, have a conversation with a student at the start of the day, and push them and say, hey, how's that science grade? Did you turn in those missing assignments for mathematics? But I want to say this too. I want to say this as an assistant principal, there were things I didn't know. And you have to have the humility to be able to go to folks who are teachers who you may supervise and say, could you help me with this? I'm tasked with leading this initiative, but I need your expertise. Could you help me? You can't be afraid to reach out and say, I don't know something. And that's the only way you grow. You got to really be able to fall back and get beyond your title and ask for assistance, whether it's something related to gifted education or special ed or MTSS or any number of things. You have to be able to say, could I get some assistance in what you do in doing that? You show your vulnerability, you show your willingness to grow, but you also lift up that person who you're reaching out to and you give them some voice.
Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. You have a conference coming up and you're actually, I've been talking about the conference for the past several weeks, past month. But now here you are. Talk to us about that conference and why it's significant.
Yeah, the Deaf Ed National Conference was really born out of a need for conferences that really speak to leading in urban spaces and speaking to social justice, culturally relevant pedagogy, and social emotional learning. After the pandemic, everybody was stressed. Teachers are stressed. Kids, some are afraid to come to school. Parents are afraid of sending their children into school, and we're kind of getting used to each other socially. Our youngest kids, their first experience in a classroom was probably by second grade because you had 2 years where we were just virtual. And so this conference is for us to kind of calibrate where we are and what we can do as school leaders, teachers, what we can do in those communities. All the sessions are geared towards some of the things that urban schools are facing. And I felt like there was a void. There was a real void in terms of finding conferences that really spoke to what we're going through. So that's where it came out of. But it's also sponsored by Deaf Ed Magazine, which is a new publication that is for educators who are connected to hip hop culture. Deaf Ed Magazine. So as a writer, I always had trouble finding places that could publish my articles because it spoke to urban school settings and with a hip hop perspective. And so sometimes they would get published, sometimes they wouldn't. I said, what if there was a publication that was just geared toward this? And I gave writers a platform, and that's what we created with Deaf Ed Magazine, and that's the spirit and energy of the Deaf Ed National Conference.
Love it. So tell them how they can register.
Yes, absolutely. It's on Eventbrite. If you go to Eventbrite and you put in Deaf Ed National Conference, you'll find it there. But we also have it's on the Deaf Ed magazine page. defedmagazine.com takes you right to it. So please, DEF Ed Magazine, DEF, because we're influenced by hip hop culture. We came up in the Def Jam era, and we believe in the malleability of language. I think African Americans have had such a big impact on how we speak the language, and we have to embrace that. And so that's why it's called Def Ed Magazine. But those letters for us stand for develop, engage, and flourish. We want to develop as professionals. We want to engage a broader community, and we want our schools to flourish. We want our children to flourish.
I love it. So, hey, folks, come on out there. It's going to be a lot happening. I'm a part of it. I'm one of the keynoters, along with Dr. Anthony Muhammad and Aaron Jones, and then all the workshop presenters, who I always say are the most important people to a conference, not the keynoters, but them folks that's in them rooms doing breakout sessions. Those are the ones that drive the conference. So come on out, go to the page and register. If you forget the title or didn't write it down and tried to memorize it, and like me, forget it 2 seconds later, just Google it, DEF, Deaf Ed Conference. It'll come right up, and then register and join us down in Atlanta, July 16 and 17. Let's go to these BAM impact questions. They're rapid fire, 1 sentence or 1 word answer. A lot of folks struggle with it, but I had one recently. It was they would hit me with 1 word. Let's see what happens. All set. Here we go. 20 questions. Is education on the right path for underserved children?
No.
Can true equity occur in America's schools for Black, brown, and other underserved students?
No.
Does your work, Principal Andre Benito Mountain, does your work contribute to the progress we desperately need?
Yes.
If you could do a reset on your life, would your line of work be different or the same?
The same and sooner.
Why do you continue to do this work?
Because of the many folks who are depending on me to be in place.
What fires you up within the work that you do?
Impact.
Impact. What do you dislike about the work that you do?
Apathy.
What has been your greatest victory to date in this work?
Greatest victory to date has been seeing change in practices.
What was your greatest mistake in this work?
Believing that everyone has the best interests of children.
What has been your greatest challenge in this work?
Helping parents to understand their role of supporting the school.
Yeah. Are you proud of your first year as an assistant principal?
Yes.
Are you proud of your first year as a principal?
Yes.
Who inspires you in this work?
Dr. Chris Emden, Anthony Muhammad, Baruti Kafele, Aaron Jones.
Appreciate that. Yeah, you know, Chris Emden is much younger than me, but he inspires me. I call him, when I see him, I call him Imhotep. Because he is a Imhotep. I mean, he's a multi-genius. You know, it's not, you know, people, you know, they associate him with the hip hop education and all that, but this cat's a scientist, right? Yeah, he's a mathematician. Yeah, I call him Imhotep when I see him. You know, so what are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm reading The Education of Blacks in the South by James Anderson. I'm also reading Hip Hop Beats and Classroom Life. I'm reading The Social Justice Equity 50. That's going to be a book study of ours in the fall. What else am I reading? I'm also reading, one of my favorite authors is Robert Greene, who wrote The 48 Laws of Power, but he has another book called The 33 Strategies of War. And if you are the courage to fight, again, if you are engaged in this work and you're not fighting, then you're probably not making much of a difference. So the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene is another great one I would recommend to any AP or principal.
Love it. Love it. Almost there. Let's see. What book do you recommend for our viewers? And I guess you just said it, right? So I'll keep, unless you had another one you want to recommend.
I would recommend The Courage to Teach by Parker Palmer. That's another one we read as a staff last year, The Courage to Teach by Parker Palmer, and it unpacks the struggles and challenges you will inevitably face if you are grounded in being an educator.
What do you want to accomplish that you haven't accomplished just yet?
I'd like to create a hip hop laboratory as a pilot that could be used in other schools to teach students about hip hop culture, literature, and STEM.
Are you satisfied with where you are professionally?
Yes.
What would you say to a viewer out there who continues to face closed doors?
There's an infinite amount of doors, and keep knocking, because the door that's supposed to open for you will open. And what I've learned in my experience over 20 years in education is that the doors that I wanted to open that didn't open, those aren't the doors I was supposed to walk into. Those aren't the districts I was supposed to work for. I recall coming to Atlanta many times to job fairs, never being hired. And the times I've gone to job fairs in Atlanta, I've been a principal sitting on the other side of the table, giving others an opportunity. But had I come here, a lot of the growth that happened in other places would not have happened. So understand there's a purpose behind everything.
Love it. What could you say to a viewer out there that's lost their fire?
There are people who are depending on you. There are kids who are going to be in your classroom. There are teachers you're going to encounter that they need you to be that light, to be that torch, to guide their way. So always understand that there are people who are watching you and inspired by you and depending on you. So let's not let those folks down, because you could be the person to inspire them to make a difference.
And lastly, if Principal Andre Benito Mountain was a word in a dictionary, what would be your definition?
Transformation.
Transformation. I love it. I love it. That's our 20 questions, and that's our discussion. I want to thank you. This was powerful, and I was reading the comments. Most of them I saw, and it resonated. So, folks, you know how we do here. Those of you who have been with me for a while, if you enjoyed the conversation, if it was beneficial to you, give us some love. Give Principal Mountain some love. Give him some fire, some hearts, some praise, whatever your favorite emoji is. Put it in the chat and let him know that you appreciate his words of wisdom this morning. Put it in the chat and let us see it. I see it coming. There it is. I appreciate that. He appreciates it. Oh, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. I see it. I see it. I see it. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You hit it out the park. I'm going to be ordering from Amazon. You know, I use a bat when I'm at home, right? But I need one of them little miniature joints, right? So I could let the guests know when I'm in the hotel that you hit it out the park, because that's what you did. Oh, I see Dr. DeLacy Davis in the building. I didn't realize you were there, Doc. Good to see you. Yeah, so that fire keeps coming, man. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So again, folks, let me just give the rundown real quick. Stay with me, Principal Mountain. Even when I end it, stay with me. Next week, folks, I got another principal from Ohio. Her name is Jen Schwanke. She wrote 3 books, but the one I want to focus on is called You're the Principal, Now What? Once again, you're the principal, now what? So that's Jen Schwanke. She's one of my ASCD colleagues. She'll be with me next Saturday. Make sure you check out Sean Hurt. He was out today, but at Facebook Live every Saturday morning, Sean Hurt at 10, Sheikah Houston, Dr. Sheikah Houston, soon to be Dr. Tammy Taylor, 10:30. Unlock the Middle on Sundays with Josh Tovar, Dean Packard, and others. Village Leadership, that's Sundays at 7. And then Village Leadership Group with Dr. Roz Gaskins and Coach Williams on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6. That's all Facebook Live. Once again, my guest, he's got 4 books, but these are the 2 I packed away and brought with me. Principles Don't Walk on Water and Virtually Lost, right? So get both copies. Just go to Amazon, go to Barnes and Noble. No, I don't know if they're on Barnes, but go to Amazon.com and they're all there. Get yourself a copy. I've been so pleased to see just the Amazon rankings of every guest I bring on here. Most of them go to number 1 when we do this, but check it out and just add it to your library, your arsenal of professional learning material toward becoming that leader that you aspire to become. Make sure you check out principalkafele.com. I got a whole lot of resources on there, man. That website's not just a marketing tool for me. It's an institute of professional learning. That's what it is. A plethora of blog posts, articles I've written. I told y'all I write for Learning Forward now. I'm a columnist for them. So, you know, those articles are on there. All the stuff I've written for ASCD, then all the videos, you know, and then everything else. It's podcasts, interviews, everything is there. Check it out, principalkafele.com. Make sure that you like and follow the Virtual AP Leadership Academy Facebook page, because I write a commentary every Sunday morning. I'll write it on the plane tonight so I can sleep late. So every Sunday morning, I write a commentary and post it not later than 10 o'clock, but I don't post it anywhere else. It's not on Twitter. It's not on my personal Facebook page. You got to be on that Facebook page, Virtual AP Leadership Academy, to be able to read the commentary. And it's typically, I think, good stuff, if I might say so myself. So check it out. And then also make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Virtual AP Leadership Academy. We're at like 15,000 subscribers, but I really want to bring it up to 20. Right. So because, you know, we're trying to reach as many APs as possible. So just subscribe to that Virtual AP Leadership Academy YouTube channel. And then lastly, your diet, man. You got to eat right. I tell you that every week. You got to eat right. Your exercise. Let me tell you something. I spoke all day yesterday. I came in, watched the first game. You know, I'm in Pacific time, so the first game was like 4:30 as opposed to 7:30 when I'm home. So I watched the game, then went to the gym. Man, I'm not used to being on the treadmill that late, and when my body's still on East time. So it was like late at night. It was like 9:30. I'm on the treadmill. It was a struggle. It really was, but I got it in, right? Mm-hmm. So you just gotta make them sacrifices. Just get it in, and then your COVID precautions. You know, just make sure you're taking care of yourself. You know, if you don't take care of you, then what use are you to somebody else, right? So make sure you're taking care of yourself. With that said, glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Even the ones that don't put comments in, glad to see you too, because I feel you. I don't see you, but I feel you. Right. So glad you're here. I'll see you next Saturday, 10:55. Until then, have a great week. Have an extraordinary week. Have your best week yet. Peace. Peace. Thumbs up. Cock that fist back all the way. 1, 2, 3. Bam! I'll see you next Saturday morning.